Have you ever thought about what truly limits the electric vehicles we drive today? I mean, what's the biggest hurdle?
It's usually range, isn't it? Or charging speed.
Exactly. Getting greater range, faster charging speeds,
Yeah.
because let's be honest, that's what we all really want.
More miles, less time plugged in. Definitely.
And innovators are constantly pushing boundaries.
Mhm.
One of the core ways they're doing it is through, well, advancements in material technology.
Material science. Crucial stuff.
And that brings us directly to today's deep dive.
Yeah.
Just last week, China made some rather significant trade decisions.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
They announced they're going to ban the export of two incredibly critical materials, gallium and germanium.
Gallium and germanium. Okay, not exactly household names.
No, but they are vital for so much of modern technology, including, maybe unsurprisingly, those electric cars we just talked about.
So what's fascinating here is why? Why did China do this? And what's the actual impact on the West, on places like Europe and America and their allies?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise and speculation out there already.
Right. But our goal today is to explore this with precision. Cut through that noise to understand the real implications.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to really dissect this intricate tit-for-tat trade conflict. We'll look at these specific materials involved,
Gallium and germanium.
the real economic consequences of China's move, and crucially, China's deeper strategic motivations. Because it might seem like a small decision, but it could be very impactful long-term.
Okay, sounds good. Let's dig in.
All right, so to really get why China made this move, we kind of need to set the stage a bit.
Context is key.
China has this incredibly ambitious plan, Made in China 2025. The stated goal is, well, self-sufficiency and global leadership in 10 key areas.
Right. Things like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and especially the big one, cutting-edge chip manufacturing. They really want to be number one.
They're not shy about it.
No. And the U.S. has been very clear about how it views this ambition. They've openly responded by taking measures to restrict China's access to advanced technology.
Specifically chips.
Particularly cutting-edge chip technology, yeah. This isn't just about, economic competition. It's explicitly about ensuring their own technological advantage, keeping that lead.
And the U.S. has been pretty strategic about bringing allies on board, specifically Japan and the Netherlands.
Ah, yes. The key players.
Because when you bring those three countries together, they collectively hold significant control over the global semiconductor manufacturing sector.
Absolutely. Their cooperation is key to the U.S. strategy here. You need all three.
Can you give us an example of how that leverage works?
Sure. A really concrete example is ASML. They're the Dutch company.
Right, the ones with the super advanced machines.
Exactly. They build these incredibly precise machines. Think of them like microscopic printing presses, essential for making the most advanced chips at scale. No one else can really do it at that level.
Okay.
Now, ASML faced a potential, roughly 15% loss in revenue because of these new U.S.-led restrictions, but they were basically compelled to comply.
Even with that hit to their bottom line.
Well, it raises that question, doesn't it? Why did they go along with it? It's because a significant chunk of their core technology is, in fact, American-made, or relies on U.S. components or patents.
Ah, I see. So the U.S. has considerable leverage over them, even though they're a Dutch company.
Precisely. It's a powerful choke point.
So what does that actually mean for China's big tech ambitions then?
Well, what this means for China is pretty stark. Without access to these advanced chips, it becomes incredibly difficult for them to achieve that stated goal of leading in areas like AI.
Because AI needs massive computing power.
Exactly. These chips are absolutely crucial for training large AI models. And they did try to find workarounds.
Oh.
Initially, some Chinese companies attempted to use U.S. cloud computing services, renting processing power from companies like Amazon or Microsoft to do their AI training.
Clever. A way around the hardware restriction.
It was. But here's where it gets really interesting. According to recent reports, the American government is now apparently preparing to limit even China's use of those cloud computing services from U.S. firms.
Wow. So closing off another avenue for them.
Essentially, yeah. Trying to cover all the bases.
Okay, so given all those U.S. restrictions piling up, how did China choose to respond? What was their initial counter move in this escalating tech conflict?
Well, their immediate response just last week was to play what you could call their trump card,
Which is?
their formidable control over certain critical materials. Now, let's clarify what we mean by these. Broadly, we often hear about rare earth elements.
Right, that group of 17 elements on the periodic table.
Exactly. They're often rare in terms of concentration, making them hard to mine economically, and they're incredibly difficult to process.
Yeah.
But they are absolutely crucial for most modern tech.
In China's role there is?
China currently dominates their global production, the processing, and the export to the rest of the world. Huge dominance.
Okay, but today we're focusing specifically on gallium and germanium. You mentioned they aren't technically rare earths.
That's right. They're not part of that group of 17. However, getting them processed and purified to the very high standards needed for industry, that's extremely difficult and expensive for most countries.
So the challenge isn't finding them, it's refining them affordably.
Exactly. And this is where China's unique advantage comes in. They've developed the capacity over years to produce these materials at a significantly lower cost compared to pretty much any other nation.
That cost efficiency is key.
It gives them major market power.
And the precise action they took. Last week, China announced export restrictions on both gallium and germanium. Effective when?
The decision was announced last week, and it's set to go into effect early next month, so very soon.
And remind us, where are these two elements used? You mentioned EVs earlier.
Oh, the impact is remarkably widespread. They are found in a huge array of products. Yes, chips, screens, fiber optic equipment, solar panels, electric vehicles.
But it goes beyond consumer tech too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't stop there. They're also used in certain weapons systems, nuclear energy applications, night vision devices, various sensors, satellites, radars. I mean, the list goes on and on. Foundational stuff for high-tech industry and defense.
And just to put China's dominance into perspective again, what are the numbers?
The numbers are pretty staggering. China accounts for, get this, 94% of global gallium production
94%.
and 83% of global germanium production.
Wow. Okay, so what does this actually mean for the rest of the world when these restrictions kick in next month? Sounds potentially crippling.
Well, despite that overwhelming market share and what might seem like, a dire crisis at first glance, the reality is actually more nuanced.
Hmm?
The restrictions on gallium and germanium are probably not a significant long-term problem for Europe or America.
Wait, really? But why? If China controls, 94% and 83%, how can that not be a massive issue? That feels counterintuitive.
It does initially, but it's because these elements can be produced elsewhere. It's just currently more expensive to do so. Ah, the cost factor again.
Exactly. What's happening right now, even just with the announcement, is that the global price has already started to increase, significantly, in fact.
Okay.
This price hike basically changes the economics. It will incentivize Western companies to finally invest in developing their own production facilities or restarting old ones. It makes it profitable for them to cover those higher costs.
So until now, producing these in the West was like
Trying to sell ice to Eskimos when China had an entire glacier next door, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Their low prices made it impossible to compete. The price hike changes that whole equation.
Right. So it's not about inventing the wheel. It's about making it economically viable again. And it's not like the West is starting completely from scratch here.
Not at all. That's a key point. There are already other countries with facilities, or at least the raw capacity, to produce these elements. We're talking Japan, Russia, Ukraine, South Korea, Germany, Kazakhstan.
Canada, Belgium, U.S. itself.
The U.S., yes.
Yeah.
They have some capacity, often linked to zinc or aluminum processing. It's about scaling it up or making it priority. And are there short-term fixes too?
Yeah, that's also worth noting. There are temporary, maybe less efficient alternatives or ways to recycle these materials more effectively. This has apparently already helped places like Taiwan and South Korea mitigate some of the immediate shockwaves from China's announcement.
Okay, so if the direct economic impact isn't actually that severe for the West, then what's really going on here? What is the strategic play?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Why gallium and germanium specifically? Why not threaten something seemingly more vital like lithium? I think the German economy minister mentioned that would be a much bigger problem.
He did, yes. That would hit the EV battery supply chain hard.
Or why not restrict other high-value rare earth exports? Things like neodymium or samarium magnets, which are used in motors and turbines. Those accounted for way higher volumes, 49,000 tons last year?
And much higher value, too, about $3.8 billion. Compared to Gal and J, those are big numbers.
So why these two relatively smaller volume, lower value metals?
Well, there aren't definitive studies confirming this yet. It's still early days. But a logical explanation is emerging. It suggests China's choice was highly strategic, very calculated, aiming for both short-term and potentially long-term objectives.
Okay, what's the short-term thinking?
One possible short-term objective could be simply to drive up the global prices of these materials. We're already seeing that happen.
Right.
This forces Western companies to produce them domestically at a higher cost. That higher cost eventually gets passed on into the final price of Western-made high-tech products.
Making equivalent Chinese products look more competitive on price.
Exactly. A subtle way to gain a pricing advantage.
Okay, that makes sense as a short-term goal. But you mentioned a long-term play, too.
Precise. And this is where it gets, I think, really quite ingenious, potentially.
Go on.
Gallium and germanium are often recovered as byproducts from other industrial processes. Things like processing coal, specifically coal ash and bauxite, which is the ore for aluminum.
Okay.
Industries that aren't exactly popular in the West. Exactly. These industries face massive environmental opposition in Europe and America due to pollution concerns, CO2 emissions, waste disposal issues.
So China, by forcing the West to produce these domestically again,
Is effectively asking them to make a difficult choice. Choose between securing a national security supply chain for these critical materials or sticking to their own green agendas and environmental regulations, which make these industries difficult and expensive to operate.
wow, that puts Western governments in a tough spot.
It's a potentially brilliant, subtle move that could create long-term supply headaches and internal political friction for Europe and America, playing the long game.
It really is a clever move, isn't it?
Yeah.
And another key strategic point here seems to be the almost negligible economic impact on China itself.
Absolutely crucial point. They export very small quantities of these materials. Relatively speaking, you mentioned the tonnage earlier, about 43 tons of germanium, 94 tons of gallium annually.
And the monetary value is pretty low compared to other exports, right?
Hmm.
What were the prices again?
Around $245 per kilogram for gallium, maybe $1,265 per kilogram for germanium. It varies, but it's not huge money compared to, say, finished electronics or those rare earth magnets.
So bottom line, China isn't really hurting its own economy significantly with this particular move.
Not in any major way.
Yeah.
Which means when we look at it like this, China's action isn't some desperate lashing out. It feels much more like a precisely calculated, very careful move.
They understand the complex web of economic interdependence.
Deeply, yes. They seem to understand the interdependence of the Chinese, American, and global economies. They know exactly how much pressure they can likely apply here without causing a full-blown economic crisis that would boomerang back on themselves.
Okay, that makes a lot of strategic sense. Is there any other angle to consider?
Well, there's one final strategic angle that's definitely worth considering, and it's perhaps the most obvious one.
Which is?
This could simply be a message, a shot across the bow. Exactly. Some Chinese state-affiliated newspapers have sort of hinted as much, that this might be just the beginning. A warning signal that more significant sanctions on other materials could follow if the U.S. continues or escalates its restrictions on China's access to advanced technology, especially those chips.
Don't push us further, because we have other levers we can pull.
That seems to be the underlying message, yes.
So we've just uncovered this really intricate dance, haven't we? A precise strategic move by China, using its control over these critical but maybe obscure materials
Gallium and germanium.
as a direct response to U.S. tech restrictions. It's this fascinating display of economic and geopolitical chess.
And it often plays out with materials we just don't think about in our daily lives.
Yeah, it really reiterates a broader lesson for all of us, I think.
Which is?
How seemingly minor materials, things most people have never heard of, can certainly become really significant leverage points in these complex global struggles.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the hidden layers, the vulnerabilities within our global supply chains, things we take for granted.
So the big question for you listening is, what does this all mean going forward, beyond the immediate headlines about gallium and germanium?
How will this ongoing push and pull over technology and critical resources reshape global supply chains and our economic relationships in the coming years?
And maybe what other hidden materials out there might hold similar strategic power that we haven't even considered yet? Something to think about.